how hands-on should the founder be in recruiting these potential franchise owners, or are they hiring like a franchise development team that's primarily responsible for this? How much is the founder versus how much is the hiring to find those right people, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a good question about how or what's the level of involvement of the franchisor. I would say in the beginning, the franchisor should be intimately involved. And the reason for that is it's your brand. You're bringing in those new franchisees. You've got to ensure that not only do they have financial capabilities, obviously, that they are interested in the brand, but also do they live those core values? Will they fit into your culture? Those things are priceless and really need to be focused in from the franchisor perspective so that you know that you're bringing in the right people. Specifically, those first 5 or 10, let's be honest, they are going to be your mouthpiece for your brand. And when somebody else comes in and wants to join that franchise, the first thing they're going to ask is, can I speak to a couple of franchisees? And you're going to want to make sure that you've not only selected the right ones, but you've cultivated them, you've supported them, you've mentored them, you've been there for them to help them grow and develop and get all set up, because they're going to end up being your communication and your brand ambassador as other franchisors show interest in your franchise.
That's awesome, Frank. And as you're kind of highlighting the significance of those first 5, 10 franchise owners, and you're trying to build those local relationships, it sounds like. Is it really important to have those first 5, 10 franchise owners in like the same geographical region, like probably the same state, or are you really opening it up across the country all at once, if that makes sense?
No, I think what you pointed out is a great point. What we always say is start with a bullseye, right? So here's where your corporate location is, then start to work out from that bullseye. So for example, I would never want to stay by state because, for example, we're in the Philadelphia area. We've got Delaware, New Jersey, and New York right next door to us. So it's about state, it's about geographics. And I always say, and I always make fun of this, but franchisees can be like kids. Sometimes they need a hug. And so by having them close by, you can give them whatever they might need at that point in time. A couple of hours drive within that time frame is always good to start out with, because you can then support them for what they need, and not just from a Zoom call or a phone call, but also in person if that's really what they need.
No, I think that's really awesome. I really like that analogy as well. I think that's really helpful for the viewers to kind of get a nice visualization. It sounds like a lot of the first 5, 10 franchise owners, for the most part, a lot of kind of like word of mouth, kind of boots on the ground in your local community, cultivating relationships. At what point should you start to figure out when to leverage the broker networks? Or is there some brands where you may never use the broker networks? Or is there a recipe for somewhere it's like once you reach 5, 10 franchise owners, then you leverage the broker networks? Or is there not really a one size fits all, if you will?
Yeah, I would say there's not really a one size fits all. It really does depend on your personal situation. I always say, and we say on the team as well, give it a good college try. So try out that first 6 to 9 months on your own. Use your leverage of your interaction with your customers. Use your social medias. Use the LinkedIns. Use the Google searches. Use those kind of things on your own, spending very little money, but leveraging your current customer base. If that's not working and you're not finding that you're getting the traction that you want, then you might consider leveraging a broker network, right? There's many broker networks out there. Some are larger, some are smaller, and some actually embrace emerging brands. Emerging brands, what I mean by that is someone who doesn't have any franchisees and you're just starting out. And so they love emerging brands because they want to be there. Then there's other broker networks who are a little different, and that's okay. But they want to see a proven track record of success. So they want to see, has there been 5 or 10 franchisees that have come on board, and what's that support look like? And what do those franchisees say about the system? So they have a little bit of track record there, and then they're willing to take you from that track record of those 5 or 10 that you currently have to the promised land. So because of that, it just depends on your situation, and it depends on also your capabilities. I remember interviewing this one particular client as they were looking to come on board as a client with us. And the one thing the person said to me in the very beginning, he said, "Frank, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a good sales guy. It's not who I am. I'm an operations guy. I'm going to have to farm this out." In the very beginning, we already planned out. We were going to actually introduce him to broker networks right from the beginning. It wasn't going to be when he had 5 or 10 franchisees, and he wasn't going to try that 6 or 9 months on his own. He wanted to start out running from the beginning. And so he went to the broker networks in the beginning. And so it really is an individual case of how you want to proceed. But either way, whether it's on your own or whether it's a broker network, We are there to hold the hand. We are there to be with you. We support you. I call ourselves the Wizard of Oz because we're behind the curtain. We're always giving coaching and counseling with you, but we're not out front. You're out front. You're the franchisor. You're the one that's leading this franchise.
No, that's awesome, Frank. I think that's super helpful for the viewers as they're starting to maybe think about leveraging the broker networks. What would you say, you've helped over 500 brands at this point, some of them using broker networks. What do you think is the true value of a brand starting to leverage the broker networks, whereas they could just try doing things organically, using social media, word of mouth, paid advertisements themselves? What's the value of using the broker networks, whereas trying to do it themselves?
Well, for one, those broker networks have deep relationships and deep databases of people who have are interested in buying franchises, who have bought franchises in the past, and who are open to buying more. So they have access to those resources. And I think that that's something that is highly valuable to the franchisor. The other thing is not only do they have resources, they have reach. So it means that there's many quote unquote brokers in a certain area. So let's say that you were in the state of Florida and you decided that you were going to start to sell in Florida only, or you were going to do just Georgia and Florida. You can look at that broker network. While they can reach out nationally to using all those brokers, you can also hone in and really build good relationships with those one in Florida and with Atlanta or in Georgia, because then this way that's where you want to start. So those broker networks are really great flexibility for that franchisor to be able to leverage what their goals are and their opportunities, leverage the networks that those brokers have.